There we go. Ooh, sorry about that. So we have this beautiful little equation, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So the first thing we want to do is just want to visualize a circle. So we should be able to do that, but just understand what hk, x, y, and r mean. So in the future, as we're plugging in or getting information from the equation, we know what we're talking about. So hk, so once again, I'll write, and then I'll always give you a second because I know half the time my hand is in the way. HK is the center point. Excuse me. All right, so we can see over here we have a nice circle, and you can see the center is labeled as h comma k, so that wasn't a surprise. But just as a heads up, your center can be moved all around your graph, and wherever it is, we label that as hk. xy is any point on the circle. As you can see, there's one here, but they're all around here, so you could pick any point on that circle. And r is your good old radius. So radius is the distance from the center to any point. So delightful. So nothing too crazy. Once again, I know sometimes math is annoying because, there's only so many letters. So we talked about HK before when we talked about quadratics and vertex. So just make sure you know what HK you're talking about. In this case, we're talking about the center. So the equation of a circle is used to graph a circle or to find parts of it. So depending on what we need, we might need certain parts, such as the center, the radius, or a point on the circle. All right. So basically, it's just this nice little equation that we can either put information into, or if it gives us the equation, we can get information out of. So once again, just make sure we'll get used to that equation, but it's something we do want to know as the future goes on. So basically, the first section, these are going to be super quick. Once again, you're going to be like, man, is it really that easy? And the answer is yes, it really is that easy, which is delightful. The first section says examples. Sorry, the left side got cut off a little bit, so you don't see the numbers, but find the center and radius. Well, I can do that because it's just a whole bunch of labeling, figuring out what's HK and then what's R. And that shouldn't be too bad. So in this first one, it just says x squared plus y squared. H and K are not given. Hey guys, what should we assume that they are? 0, right? We don't write zeros usually in equations. That's a big old thing. So technically, you could write it as x minus 0 squared plus y minus 0 squared equals 25. But who really wants to write zeros, right? No one. So we would just say, if it's written like this, we would just say the center, I'm just going to write C. The center is at 0, 0. And then we need the radius. Remember, the radius is not 25. That's the radius squared is 25. So in order to find the radius, we always take the square root of that. So the radius in this case would be 5. So pretty quick, once again, just getting used to where things are in that equation and then just how things are set up. That's about all you have to do for these ones, so we can kind of fly through them. So number 2, where's the center? Well, it's at HK. Just be careful, like with any equation. In the equation, there are minus signs, so we always think that we do the opposite. So the center would be at -8, right? Because you would have to do x minus -8 to get a plus, comma 3. So remember, do that opposite sign. And the radius would be, remember, r squared is 100. So we take the square root and the radius is 10. So once again, you kind of just get into a groove of these and then just start filling things in. Number 3, the center is at 4, comma, since once again, there's no K listed, we assume it's 0. And then the radius, since the radius squared is 1, the square root of 1 is also just 1. So just, a nice little intro day, just getting used to that formula. So I'll just kind of do all of them with you. Why not? You're going to try that homework in a minute. The center of number 4, once again, sorry, the side was cut off, but we can assume that's 4, is 5, comma, -1. So just be careful with signs. And the radius is, well, the radius squared is 144, so the square root's 12. And we can just keep chugging along. I can do these in like 2 seconds. For the center, the H would be 0, right? Because it's not listed. And the K is -2. Ooh, look at that one getting fancy. r squared is 18. So we take the square root, right, to get r. Please make sure we should give things as simplified radicals. So you break that bad boy down, and that would be 3 root 2. So if you ever can give an answer, we do want exact answers. So if you have to break it down, you take the square root and then break down your radical. And then last but not least, your center is at 0, 0. And your radius is the square root of 16, which is 4. So hopefully as we've done those minus, having that one, you had to break down the radical. It's really just knowing where things are in the equation and getting used to it. So hopefully you're saying, hey, that's not that bad. So what happens is the next section is you just kind of do the same thing, just backwards. So we were given an equation and finding the center and radius. In this case, the next part, you're given the center and radius and you're going to write the equation. So nothing, once again, too crazy, just getting used to that form. I always keep saying formula because that's what I always using formulas in my trig class. Equation, excuse me. So we can kind of do these ones quick too. It's just knowing where things go. Once again, if you have zeros as either your H and K, you don't need to write them, right? So we don't really write equations like that. That was just to visualize it. We just go back and say, if I don't need to write it, I would have x squared plus y squared equals. Remember, this is the radius, but for the equation, we want the radius squared. So 4 squared is 16. Hey, it's almost like they planned that 6 and 7 were kind of the same thing, just going in opposite directions. So we can do a million of these. It's just knowing where things go. So number 2, you would write x minus 2 squared plus x plus 3 squared. So just be careful with those signs. Doing the opposite. And that's going to equal, remember, it's 15 squared, which is 225. Oh my God, why did I write 2 x's? There we go. I'll just make that a y. Yes, I was just going a little crazy there. Thank you. Always corrects me if I misspeak or miswrite. All right, so we can kind of keep going. So that would be x plus 7 squared. Plus, we'll just write that as y squared, right? We don't need to write the 0 in. And that's going to equal r squared, which is 100. All right, so we can do, once again, these next ones should be pretty quick. What, x plus 5 squared plus y plus 1 squared. It's going to equal 4. Once you get into the groove, it's just like you just go with it. Center's at 0, 0. I always like those, x squared plus y squared. In that case, it's going to just equal 1. And last but not least, x minus 4 squared plus y minus 8 squared is going to equal 22 squared, which is 484. Beautiful. All right. So once again, once you do a few, you're like, dude, you're just plug it in. I can do this all day. And that's basically what it is, just getting used to that equation and plugging in that important info. So last but not least, we have these 2 graphs. And once again, sorry, because kind of this left, I don't know what was happening as we were copying these, but the kind of thing got cut off. But we have this nice little equation, and it's asking us to graph it. And like with any equation, we kind of just say, well, what important info do I know? And then can I put that on a graph? So whenever we're talking about the equation of a circle, we always talk about 2 things, which we've now said like at least 12 times here. We're talking about the center and we're talking about the radius. So in this case, I can find the center pretty easily just by looking at H and K. In this case, it would be 1, 1. Okay, that's not that bad. And the radius. So the good old radius, remember, this is r squared. So I take the square root. The radius is 3. So as I want to graph it, once again, we're just doing a sketch. We're not going to get our, oh my God, I just lost the word. Things out. Oh God, I'm losing my mind to make our circles. But I can plot a point. I can do the radius. So I always kind of go up 3, 1, 2, 3. I go to the right 3. I go down 3. And I go to the left 3 from the center. And I'm just going to do my best to sketch a circle. It's not going to be perfect, but 'tis life. So it should look circle-like. I always end up being a little. Well, that's pretty darn good if you ask me, actually. I'm pretty proud of myself. So you got a nice circle and that's it. So that's how you draw a circle. You find the center, you do the radius, and then you get your nice circle there. What a beaut. And last but not least, just like we've been doing, it asks us to write the equation of the circle based on this graph. From this graph, we can get some information like what is the center? You just look, and the center is -1, 0. What is the radius? Well, I can just count out from the center, and the radius looks like it's 2. And then what is my equation? It would be x plus 1 squared plus, we'll just write y squared, right, because k is 0. And then that's going to equal r squared, which is 4. And that is it. So you've probably noticed today has been like a lot of repetition. That's for a specific reason. So we know what we're doing, right? We don't want to just rush through and be like, you just know this. It's like, no, we'll practice a little. So hopefully it's not too terrible. Our main goal is to get used to this equation. So that's something we do want to commit to our memory at some point along the way. And then it's just kind of a lot of practice from there. So that was that. That was the notes for today. So everyone should say yes. I feel like we're usually like, you got to get it in today. We're just taking our sweet time, and that is delightful on a Monday after a long weekend. So I'm going to go into my classroom just because it's here. Oops. What is this?